Edinburgh is famous for its castle, sitting high on a volcanic plug, looking over the city. But there is another castle you can go to and visit in the Scottish capital. Craigmillar Castle stands to the south of Edinburgh, and it is a lesser known castle in the city. Dating back to the late 1300s, at one time it would have stood a few miles to the south of Edinburgh's city walls. The castle was built by the Preston family in 1374. The Prestons owned the castle for over 300 years, before it was taken over by the Gilmore family until the state took possession of the castle in 1946. Craigmillar Castle has witnessed some dark events in Scotland's past. In the reign of King James III, the King's brother, the Earl of Mar, was imprisoned in the castle. Mar was charged with treason. Taking ill, Mar was moved to the Canongate in Edinburgh, and there he died in mysterious circumstances. He either took his own life or was murdered, being found dead in his bath. His arteries and his wrists had been opened. Following Mar's death, several local women, suspected of plotting the king's death along with Mar, were arrested. They confessed to making an image of the king with wax and throwing it into the fire. Found guilty of witchcraft, these women were tied to the stake and burned at Castle Hill, now the esplanade of Edinburgh Castle. King James V frequently fled the city and stayed at Craigmillar Castle, trying to escape the ravages of the pestilence or plague. The castle was attacked by an English army and burnt down in 1554. Mary Queen of Scots has a strong connection with the castle. In September 1563, Mary met the English ambassador, who told her if she wanted to remain on friendly terms with England, she would have to marry someone the English found acceptable. She married Henry Darnley in 1565. This royal marriage was a disaster for Mary, for Darnley was immature, a drunkard who preferred the company of his male hangers-on than that of the Queen. Mary developed a deep friendship with David Rizzio. Rizzio was murdered in front of the pregnant Queen at Holyrood Palace in Edinburgh. The Queen's husband, Henry Darnley, was one of the conspirators. After giving birth, Mary came to Craigmillar to rest. The castle was owned by one of Mary's loyalist lords, Sir Simon Preston, the Provost of Edinburgh. Mary met a band of her supporters at Craigmillar, and a decision to get rid of Henry Darnley was made. This is known as the Craigmillar Bond. Whether or not Mary realised this meant Darnley's death is not clear. In 1567, Mary suggested Darnley, who had just returned from Glasgow and was suffering from smallpox, stay at Craigmillar to recuperate, but he refused, preferring to stay in a house in the city called Kirk O'Fields. On the night of the 9th of February, or the early hours of the 10th, the city was rocked by a huge explosion. Kirk O'Fields had been blown up, and Henry Darnley's body was found, lying in the garden. He was dead. He'd been strangled. The authorities and the Church of Scotland suspected Mary was complacent in the death of her husband, and this resulted in her eventual arrest and imprisonment. Craigmillar Castle, along with many of Scotland's castles, is said to be haunted. A white lady has been spotted in the castle. Perhaps she is the ghost of Mary Queen of Scots, returning to the castle to visit her friend and loyal supporter, Sir Simon Preston. On the Sunday of the 5th of May, 1935, the Sunday Post told an interesting story of a ghostly sighting at Craigmillar Castle. This ghost was of a man who glides over fields adjoining the castle and vanishes within the ruins on the approach of mortals. This ghost wears a long blue cloak and spurred riding boots. His face is hidden by a long mass of tangled hair, which falls over his forehead and through which eyes gleam menacingly. The ghostly figure was spotted from the road leading to the castle in 1935. The newspaper article states that this strange figure was also spotted the year before in 1934, and at that time large crowds gathered, hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghost. Also in 1934, several local men conducted a ghost hunt at the castle, hoping to catch a glimpse of this cloaked figure, but they failed to see anything strange. Although another man did see something. He said he saw a shadowy being glide round the ruins and vanish through an old doorway. On the 17th of September 1936, the Reverend W.T. McGregor wrote a letter to the Daily Mail newspaper describing his visit to the castle. McGregor states that visitors to Craigmillar Castle report all sorts of queer experiences. Giving his own account of going down to the dungeons, the Reverend stated that the silence was oppressive, but I had no particular sensation until I began to feel my way down to the lowest dungeon of all. Then I seemed to feel that someone was watching me and getting ready to come down the stairs behind me. He stated that he was glad to reach the open air again. So, I would encourage you to skip the crowds of Edinburgh Castle and visit the romantically named Little France area of the city, named because it's where Queen Mary's French attendants stayed when she visited Craigmillar Castle. It seems that there has been no more modern sightings of this figure in the blue cloak with the menacing eyes. Who was he? Was he perhaps the Earl of Mar, who was imprisoned in the castle? Or was he the skeleton that was found locked up in the partition wall of the dungeon in 1813, buried upright? We will probably never know. But if you do go to Craigmillar and you experience anything strange yourself, or if you know of anybody who has paranormal experiences in and around the castle, I'd be delighted to hear about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. You might like to take one of our dark history tours, ghost tours, or paranormal investigations that are held in Perthshire, Glasgow and Stirling. If so, please visit our website, which is www.historyandhorrortours.com. Thank you.